The sitting is resumed. Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. First, let me join the Honourable Prime Minister and say it is good to be back in Bridgetown. And please forgive me, as I really think it absolutely fitting to read into the records of this Honourable House, by virtue of being reported and recorded in Hansard, the tremendous job that was done to be able to fix the environmental issues that we had here in this Parliament in Bridgetown. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it was a tremendous job undertaken by the Ministry of Housing and the Ministry of Transport Works and Maintenance, together with the members of the staff here at Parliament, including the Speaker, who made it his business to be here on a regular basis, sometimes till 12 o'clock at night, to see that this work was appropriately done. It was a long and difficult task. Started, I believe, just under 2 years ago, and we had to do lots of work in terms of mold in the library area by taking out the under cellar, making a new cellar that air could pass through, that the walls would be able to dry appropriately, because people forget that we are just next to the river. So a lot of moisture is just under the surface. We had a lot of areas that had fiberglass in the ceiling, all these new ceilings and all the ornate work that you can see in here. Very few people do this kind of work these days. And all of that had to be done. The air condition had to be changed. And in order for the air condition to be changed, we had to do a new roof, because the air condition was heavier than the previous air condition, and the roof was determined, the ceiling was determined where it sits, could not take it. All of this had to be done. We had to change out all of the carpet, because the carpet, as you know, sometimes can attract dust and mold and so on. Lots of environmental work went in to getting this Parliament back. It is a work in progress. It is not 100% complete. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we obviously are happy to be back to have budget in Bridgetown. And I could not make my first speech from this honourable chamber in this position without saying that the members of the Ministry of Housing and the members of the Ministry of Transport Works and Maintenance and the staff at this Parliament have done very, very well and have gone above and beyond the call of duty. The Clerk of Parliament, well, I thought that he slept down here. He used to be here till 12 and 1 o'clock at night, and then come back for 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning, every day for weeks. That's why you didn't see him too much in estimates, because he was here making sure that we could be back here. And to every single person, all the contractors, TMR, I don't want to call them names, but they were contractors that did a lot of work to get this Parliament to where we are today. And my heart goes out to them. I thank them for all the work that they did to get us where we are today. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I listened to the Honourable Prime Minister make that presentation yesterday, I even discussed it with the Senior Minister to my left, the member for St. James Central. And we came to an absolute conclusion that not only was that an absolutely visionary presentation, not only was it a historic presentation, but it was a totally transformational presentation. And it will go down in history as one of the best budget speeches ever given in this House of Assembly. And I say that without fear or favor. It was one of the best. one of the best. And I've known every Prime Minister and watched every budget from Errol Walton Barrow, as long as I could watch budgets, all the way through every single Prime Minister. Every single one. And none of them, and no presentation, could compare to what the Honourable Prime Minister gave yesterday. And why? Why? It touched every sector. That's the first thing. It looked to the present and it looked to the future. It gave us a history and it also gave us a path for the way forward. And more important than anything else, it was about protecting the Barbadian public, shielding the Barbadian public. Because at the end of the day, all of us in here, we stand on the shoulders of those that sent us here. And our absolute and first responsibility is to the people of Barbados. The member for St. Thomas, for the people of St. Thomas, first and foremost. The member for St. James Central, for St. James Central, first and foremost, because they are the people that sent you here. But the Prime Minister has all of those put together. And she showed what metal she is made of. She showed what stern stuff she has. And that is why the people of Barbados showed confidence in her, not once, not twice, but 3 times. 61, love! Not 60, 61. 230s and a by-election. Because they can see what good metal she's made of. And we all know it. They see it from the outside, we see it from the inside. And we see that she's strong. And good God, good to goodness, Mrs. Deputy Speaker, this government has endured. Some people call it the superfecta. I now see that the Turf Club got something called the Kaizo 6, or the Calypso 6. Maybe it's that. But from the pandemic, to the cyclonic, to the volcanic, and now it may be, I don't know, war, having tremendous effects on what we can do in this country, having tremendous effects on all of our abilities and all of our plans for growth. But you know what? Every time there's a problem, the Prime Minister comes back with a solution, and a solution that works every single time without fail. And that's exactly what she does, and that is why the people showed that confidence in her. That's why we have that confidence in her, and that's why we continue to support the vision of the Honourable Prime Minister of this country. I want to focus on a few aspects of the budget that are dear to my heart. The first one has to do with the cars and the removal of the duty, essentially the duty and VAT on electric cars, new and used, to just 10%. Let me say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that alone, if nothing else, that is going to change and transform Barbados. Now, why do I say that? Cars in Barbados right now use diesel or gasoline. You and I know the price of gasoline and diesel is going through the roof. You and I know that we don't have a refinery here in Barbados to produce gas or diesel. So we rely on foreign exchange and cash and ships and a supplier to be able to bring gas and diesel here to this country so that we can have transportation. But just imagine if the cars in this country no longer have to rely on gas or diesel, but rely on what we all have seen every day of our lives, capturing that energy of the sun and transferring it into electricity, which can then power our cars. Which means then, you're not relying on ships having to bring gas and diesel. You're not relying on foreign exchange or the opportunities to get foreign exchange to buy gas and diesel. You're not reliant on any of those things, the international price of gas and diesel, none of those things will become relevant, because all we will be able to do is use electricity to power the cars. And let me tell you, the Transport Board, after having the 46 buses that they have proven not only are they cost efficient in terms of the cost of the electricity versus the cost of the gas and diesel, but also maintenance. Maintenance much, much less as well. So when, and let me tell you, I've spoken to some of the people in the new and used car dealers who import cars to Barbados. And they are excited at the opportunity to be able to get electric cars here at just 10%. And let me go further. What I then did and what I'm suggesting, because it's not only the cars. Remember, the Prime Minister also talked about houses and putting photovoltaic systems on houses. And what that does, and she explained it, and I'm going to go a little further on it. The Prime Minister said, so you have $10,000. You put $10,000 in the bank. That's going to give you, what, $100 when the year comes, if so much? You take that same $10,000 and you buy a photovoltaic system and you put it on your house. And you sell that electricity back to the grid. That $10,000 photovoltaic system, rather than give you the $100 as it would in the bank, it's going to give you about $500 or $600 a month. $500 or $600 a month in your hand. So obviously, it is much, much better to put the money in a photovoltaic system than to have it sitting down in the bank. In fact, I called one of my banker friends and suggested to them, you all need to be doing a package. You all need to be doing a package. If you get the photovoltaic system and you get the electric car, you get a percentage that is small, so encourage people to get the photovoltaic system and to get an electric car simultaneously. And these are the kinds of things that we've got to be looking at. Now, others would argue that what are we going to do with the gas cars that we have here in Barbados? I thought about it. I wondered. I agree, because there are many people who have gas cars, some 10, 12 years old, who still would have to do something about their gas car if they're going to change to electric. But you know what? There are opportunities for export within the region, because every country in our region isn't ready for electric vehicles like how we are. And another person could get an opportunity. And this is something we have to look at. I understand that there's within the common external tariff, within the CARICOM region, there's no tariff for export. Give an opportunity to another country. So for them, certainly some place like Trinidad, where electricity is very cheap, and also where gas is very cheap, they may be not interested in looking into electric cars at this time. We don't know, but we have to explore these opportunities, because we have no choice. We have to look at changing and transforming this country so that we rely more on photovoltaic and renewable energy than we rely on fossil fuels. We have the commitment for 2030. The Honourable Member for St. James Central will tell you, and we must move towards that with pace. I also want to talk, Mr. Deputy Speaker, about batteries. Because the Honourable Prime Minister spoke about the batteries and the need to have batteries. In fact, she looked at the Honourable Members for St. James Central and myself and said that it was our responsibility to make sure that we got the battery aspect through. And this is another important aspect that people don't understand. Let me see if I can break it down a little bit. When a photovoltaic system makes electricity, it only makes it while the sun is up. So what happens when the sun sets? Well, what happens is you have a battery installation. And that battery installation would store electricity while the sun is up. And while the sun has set, what is stored in the battery will then be released into the grid to continue to provide electricity for the 24 hours. And that is what we have to do next. We have to set up the way in which batteries will be paid for, Fair Trading Commission, the revenue from the batteries, the cost of the batteries, so that the people investing in that side of the total energy revolution will have a reasonable return on their investment. And that is exactly the next stage or the next piece of the puzzle that we must work on to get this economy ready to be able to change and take us through to the next stage of our development and our transformation. You know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if in 2000, and I think 2009, where the former member for St. John passed away, and he somehow came back in 2017 and he looked around, you know, he wouldn't have seen any change in Barbados in that lost decade that the former administration was in office. He wouldn't have seen any change because there was no change. It was just to continue in the way that it went, or worse, deterioration. But you know, if he instead not came in 2017, but came in 2021, 2022, and looked around, he would see a tremendous change in this country. In a short space of time, this administration has transformed Barbados. Total transformation of this country. Fixed all of the wrongs and made them right. Is it finished? Of course not. It's a work in progress. And there's a lot of work yet to be done. But the change is obvious to everybody. The transformation has begun. And it is evident for everybody to see in this country. I want to turn, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to something that I spent many, many days working on. And the Honourable Member, I give a lot to the Honourable Member on my left, but now to the Honourable Member on my right, who now has the awesome responsibility of the response to the storm, Hurricane Elsa. And let me say first, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that Hurricane Elsa was a major problem for us. And you know, Mr. Speaker, it was, even although we had a major problem, 540 odd houses destroyed, 600 odd houses needing repairs, countless numbers of palings and trees and whatnot down. But you know what? That was just a warning, because that was a glancing blow. When we really consider what Hurricane Elsa was, it caused a tremendous problem, but it was a glancing blow to tell us to be prepared for should something stronger come to our shores. To tell us you need to make yourself prepared and ready. And I brought this here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for people to understand what this is. This is a very, very, somebody's telling me that I have to make it a document to the House. And if I so have to do, I will. Here. This is a hurricane strap. And why I brought it is because not only to show what it is, but to show the price. The price is written on here, $1.09 for a hurricane strap. $1.09 is written on it. And the Prime Minister spoke about a program that the Honourable Member for St. George South is going to have to bring. It's a program that I started when I was the Minister. But I have to give credit where the credit is due. It was not my brainchild. It came from the then leader of Solutions Barbados. And forgive me for saying his name, Granville Phillips. Because I heard Mr. Phillips on the radio one day, and he said that for $100 to $150, you could strengthen a house in Barbados. And that made me very interested, because you could learn something from anybody. And I listen to everybody, from the smallest child to the oldest person, from all of my colleagues to all of my enemies. I listen to everybody, all. And I always take note. And he said that for $100 to $150, you could strengthen a house. And I challenged him on it. And I brought him, together with two other engineers in the ministry and notable engineers in Barbados. And they wrote a paper. And that paper said that with just $150 to $200, by using simply these things called hurricane straps, you put them on the exterior of the house, which holds the rafter, essentially, to the ring beam, be it wood or wall, and you could strengthen the house. Now, it doesn't mean that that house would be able to live past a Category 3 hurricane, but it would give the house a better chance with the roof and help to hold down the roof. You know, sometimes in Speakeasy Drive, I see people with bricks on their roof, and that is the attempt to hold down the roof. But this is better. And if we, as a government, could distribute these to all the householders of Barbados and give their houses just a little more strength so that we don't have the problem of 500 odd houses having to be rebuilt at a cost of $80,000 or $90,000 and just a little $200 investment, and encourage each for those houses, and just with a $200 investment, encourage people to put these on their houses and strengthen their house just a little bit more. Maybe when the next system passes, we wouldn't have 500 houses destroyed. We wouldn't have 600 houses to repair, just with a small investment of $200. I salute the program for Strap It that the Honourable Member for St. George is going to be bringing. Deputy Speaker, in addition to that, and I can make it a document house, no problem. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Prime Minister has made it very, very clear that in order for Barbados to get out of the difficulties that we're in, we need to have growth in this country. Growth in this country. The Prime Minister says she wants double-digit growth. And growth can only come with investment. You know, when I sat on the opposition benches, 2008 to 2013, every time they brought a budget, there was no growth. No growth. Year after year, no growth. In fact, I used to call them the no-growth government. 0% growth, 0.1% growth. You know, sometimes when Speaker, the only growth, Deputy Speaker, the only growth that they were getting is growth because of inflation. Inflation was growing, but the economy was not. Because they could not get confidence in the economy. They could not get investment in the economy. They could not borrow anything because nobody was lending them anything. So there was no growth in this country for 10 years. But then the Lord sent the Honourable Prime Minister of this country. And let me tell you, we are looking at growth in this country. We are looking at significant investments in this country. And it's my responsibility to track those investments. The Prime Minister gave a few of them. I have I have a list. Prime Minister tells me it's not even a complete list, but it is a list. And it's a little different from the one that she gave because I've had additional information from when I gave her last time. And I'm going to go through them one by one because they are absolutely important for the growth and investment in this country. The first one that we all know about, Hayat Ziva. 370 rooms, an investment of $165 million US dollars, 2,000 jobs during construction, and 1,500 jobs post-construction. Discovery Bay, Royalton, 253 rooms, $160 million investment, with 700 jobs during construction and 500 jobs post-construction. Margaritaville, one that is dear to my heart. Why? Because it happens to be in the great constituency of Christchurch West. Those people, those good people that sent me here. Margaritaville, 134 rooms, a $50 million investment, 750 jobs during construction, 450 jobs after construction. Beaches, Haywoods, 550 rooms, a $300 million investment, 1,700 jobs during construction, and 1,500 jobs post-construction. A Cineplex at Warrens, $50 million investment, 150 jobs during construction, and 100 jobs after construction. A Porter's Townhouse development, 42 rooms, $20 million in US investment, 150 jobs during construction, 25 jobs after. A hotel development at Nike Beach, 70 rooms, $60 million investment, 300 jobs during construction, 150 post-construction. Prime Minister talked about the St. Lawrence Bay Marina, 130 rooms, $40 million investment, 500 jobs construction, 350 post-construction. Another one dear to my heart, that is in fact started, also happens to be in the great constituency of Christchurch West. Hotel Indigo at the former Caribbean site that has already been demolished, and they're now doing the test holes. 130 rooms, $40 million investment, 250 construction jobs, 100 post-construction. Sam Lord's Castle, one not started by us, but I'm going to tell you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I guarantee you it will be finished by us. And we are going to make sure that that is opened as quickly as possible. 422 rooms, $200 million investment, 467 jobs during construction, 1,000 jobs post-construction. I am looking at the end of construction, end of October, and hoping, praying, Prime Minister tells me don't say the date, because you know dates has changed, but we are pushing hard to get that hotel open for the winter season of this year of our Lord. Crane.
You have 5 more minutes, sir.
No, Mr. Speaker. No, it can't be. No, I didn't plan to speak that long. Anyway, I am obliged to the 10 minutes that you've just said I have. I appreciate that.
5
Oh, five, sorry.
minutes, sir.
Crane Beach, 120 rooms, $100 million investment, 250 jobs construction, 280 jobs post-construction. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is major investment in this country. It shows the most important thing: confidence in the people of Barbados. Confidence that we as a government can manage and help these investments to come. And what are the totals? Number of rooms that we intend to get by the end of this term. 1,854 rooms. 1,854, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The investment, $1.3 billion in investment that this government is bringing to this country. 1.3 billion in investment. You know how to tell you that the other administration couldn't get nothing? That if David Thompson, the member for St. John, had come back to life, you would have seen the change in Barbados at all. $1.3 billion in investment, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Jobs. Jobs. 6,146 construction jobs will be created in this country. And then jobs at the various establishments, 4,115. Mr. Deputy Speaker, what if this government ain't working hard for the people of Barbados? If this government ain't doing what we were elected to do, to bring investment, to make life better for the people of this country. And that is exactly what we have set out to do, and that is exactly what we are going to do. And with all of us working together, we can make it. You know, I'm going to close. I normally like to close with something from the Caribbean. But this time I thought most appropriate to close with a saying, not from the Caribbean, but I thought it very, very appropriate. And it goes like this. And I'm sure many of you have heard it already, but I will explain why I thought it was important. It's called "For Want of a Nail." For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the message was lost. For want of a message, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the republic was lost. For want, and all of this was for the want of a horseshoe nail. That, Mr. Deputy Speaker, tells me every single person has to play their part in this country. From the guys working at MTW or NHC with the cleanup program, NCC, to the people that I can see, to all of those that can hear my voice, all of us playing our part, we can make it. We can support our Prime Minister, because supporting the government and supporting the Prime Minister is for the benefit of us all. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for St. Michael West.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As I rise on this occasion in these budget proceedings, and I speak on behalf of the great constituents of St. Michael West, I am truly honored for them to have chosen me to represent them, to speak in these hallowed walls, amongst these honorable ladies and gentlemen, in these hallowed halls in the Parliament of Bridgetown. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I stand here, I'm cognizant of who I am and where I have come from. I stand on the shoulders in business of my four parents. I also stand on the shoulders of the founding fathers of this great country. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I say this to say to you that we have to know where we have come from to know where we are going. Similarly, as a government, what we have found, the foundations that was left by the last administration, was a foundation that was cracking. It was sinking. In fact, we had to become economic masons to repair it. In fact, we found the four horsemen of the economic apocalypse, as coined by the Honourable Prime Minister. I learned that from her and her economic advisors. I think all of you heard it as well. And the first horseman, sir, was the $420 million in foreign exchange reserves that were left at the central bank. That constituted 3 weeks of import cover. Poor. The second economic horseman was the debt trap that we found ourselves in. This one was to the tune of 176%, which gave us the onerous distinction of being the third highest in the world. Not something that you want to be proud of, the same high jump where you raise the bar every time. No, sir, the third economic horseman was the fiscal state of the SOEs, which the Honourable Prime Minister mentioned in her budget presentation. We didn't have a chance to deal with it then, but she said we can deal with it now because COVID came in the way. So, as the Honourable Member from Christchurch West just mentioned, the fourth economic horseman was growth. And what we found was severely anemic. And as the Honourable Member said, nothing was happening. Nothing was building, just got promises after promises. So we are going to fix that, obviously, with the projects that the Honourable Member just mentioned. And sir, as I previously just told you, we have to understand where we have come from to know where we're going. So I want to take you back in time. Not to a back in time fact, but back in time in history to 1776. An esteemed gentleman at that time by the name of Adam Smith wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. And in this book, he prescribed how a successful nation, how that nation become successful. And in that he said that the practitioners in an economy would work in their own self-interest, which the cumulative effect of that self-interest would be in the best interest of our country. So in essence, that is the economic godfather of trickle-down economics, sir. Amazing. So essentially, a few good men would save our souls, and we would wait around to reap the fruits, the scraps off the table. That is the philosophy of that kindly gentleman. This economic philosophy was practiced in North America in the 2000s, if you all remember. I was there, so I remember it very well. And at that time, a few good men decided to create investment vehicles to trade based on subprime mortgages. And they traded these things, and I can tell you, I had some friends at that time in university with me who owned 4, 5, and 6 houses. As the great Fed chair, Alan Greenspan, said, that this was a period of irrational exuberance. It was the time. And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this led up to the economic collapse of the Great Recession. As you guys will remember, Deputy Speaker, as you remember, this helped usher in the first black president in 2008. At that time, we also had a Democratic Labour Party government ushered in too. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is alarming to me that we do not learn from our mistakes. We do not know our history so we can know where we are going. So that administration would have allowed a few good men again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to rule the roost. A few good men, and then engage in trickle-down economics, hoping that our constituents in the urban areas get a piece. As the Honourable Member said, a good man. But sir, this is very peculiar to me, that in those 10 years to solve our economic problems and wait for the fruits to trickle down. Well, this led to tremendous decline, as you all would remember. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a period of a sleeping giant armed with the economic policies of an invisible hand. Sounds like a bedtime story that I would tell my daughter, except that it's a good, that's a horror story. So is it gets this backdrop that the solutions that we are tailoring to save this economy were rooted in the principle of spreading the burden. You heard the Honourable Prime Minister say this yesterday, that we are going to spread the burden. In bad times, you spread the burden. In good times, you share the fruits. That is what we do. So, the first order of business was to save the Barbados dollar, as you all decided to do. And the Honourable Prime Minister said the first thing she asked you all when she went in the room is the Deputy Speaker, what do you want to do? We want to save the dollar. It's the lifeblood of our economy. And today, that the foreign reserves now sit at 43 weeks of import cover, as I heard the Honourable Prime Minister yesterday, which constitutes about 3 billion or so, 3.8 billion in reserves. That was the first order of business. The second was to get out of the debt trap. And prior to COVID, I think that the Honourable Member from Christchurch can confirm this, but Essential, sorry, that we were at 117% was our GDP to debt ratio. Of course, that would have raised since then because of our COVID spending. So the third order of business was SOE reform, but as I told you earlier, because of COVID, that was not possible, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So the fourth horseman being anemic growth, as the Honourable Member from Christchurch West would have mentioned, is being sorted with the 35 odd projects or so that we are engaging in. I'm pleased to hear that that is going to equate, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to about 6,000 jobs or so. And with so many jobs, I know that the Honourable Member from St. Michael's South, in his capacity of Minister of People Empowerment, is going to partner with the Ministry of Education to teach the people to be able to capitalize on these many jobs, right? And that is something that he's going to undertake. So this government will take everyone along this ride, sir, offering opportunities to the average Barbadian to invest in the same very projects and the Honourable Member from Christchurch West just mentioned. Sam Norris Castle, the Hyatt. These are projects that we will introduce the public to invest in. We are no longer creating opportunities for a few good men. Sir, our policies were crafted to right our economy, to spread the burden of recovery, and protect the most vulnerable in our society. And as we embark on this extended agenda, we are cognizant of the new challenges that we face in this current global climate, with waging war and obviously with a virus that still has not gone anywhere. The cost of living is soaring. And the cost of living, obviously, being directly attached to the price of oil. So I was very encouraged to hear yesterday that we are capping, as the Honourable Member from St. Michael North mentioned earlier, we're capping the freight rates at pre-COVID levels at 2019, which will have a positive impact on prices on the supermarket shelves. And obviously, as the Honourable Member from St. Lucie has said in his previous presentation, and the Honourable Member from St. James Central, that we will be checking to see that that is so. In addition to that, similarly, the capping of the vatable amount of fuel at 47 cents per litre will provide consumers with a ceiling, barring, of course, any more increases in oil. Mr. Deputy Speaker, these progressive policies in the face of challenges emphasize our ability as a government to develop solutions that our sons and daughters can benefit from. In my opinion, one of the greatest accomplishments that this government has done so far is the purchasing of those electric buses. And I want to commend the Honourable Member from St. Michael West Central for that initiative, because it addresses the immediate need of our populace for public transport that was in shambles, but while being cognizant of our goals of becoming energy independent, as the Honourable Member from St. James Central has said. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, along with the ease on the taxes, which is the excise tax and VAT on electric vehicles, we will, along with that and the implementation, as the Honourable Member from St. James Central said, the implementation of solar panels on every roof in Barbados. I look forward to that, sir. Because I heard you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I heard him say this. And I look forward to the time when we would have all of our constituents in the urban area outfitted with solar panels, so they no longer have to go and get a bottle of gas. My government's commitment to reforming the education system and shackling ourselves from the archaic 11+, which has aided in the casting aside of many of our constituents, Deputy Speaker. We've seen it over and over again. Many people falling through the cracks. And I dream of the day when our sons and daughters in our constituencies will work in the tech sector, designing websites, coding, installing solar panels. I look forward to robotics. I look forward to the financial literacy programs. I would love to hear my constituents in Richmond and Eagle Hall on the block debating which investment would give them the best ROI. And sir, we'll hold you to that. Sir, I know that these progressive policies are coming, and hopefully the biggest thing that we'll see in terms of a war on the blocks is men just arguing about who's going to win the football match between Chelsea and Man U. Because they'll all be working. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, with these policy changes, the Ministry of Health comes to mind as well. And in the transition from the endemicity of COVID-19 to the fight against NCDs, I look forward to the day when I can go to my constituency, sir, and see them living healthy lives and getting basic procedures in a timely manner. Sir, with joint food ventures with Guyana, as the Honourable Member from Philip South just mentioned, to implement shade houses, to be part of the Lear's Land Lease project. I look forward to that because we know our young people are more attracted to the technology in farming, and the young people in the urban areas do not have access. So I know through the CARE project, we will be able to get a lot of those young people in the urban areas onto this program. Mr. Deputy Speaker, most of all, I look forward to a future of sustained economic growth, creating jobs, and rising income. A future that is fueled by productive workers, not only by the alliance with a few good men, sir, a future republic allowing our youth to be progressive innovators, sir. In closing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is so meaningful for me to have the opportunity to help create a mirror image of ourselves that embrace who we are as a people. We still draw strength from our forefathers. That is the resilience that we have inherited. But we see bigger opportunities. We see the opportunity to create a nation that embraces diversity, that exemplifies and amplifies our talent, creativity, and uniqueness. A nation that eliminates any biases that we may have based on age, gender, sexual orientation, creed, and a nation that accepts foreigners who want to come here to be Bajans as well. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, as we drive further and further away from that proverbial colonial steps, we truly have an opportunity to become craftsmen of our fate. I'm obliged to you.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, I beg to move this suspension of the House until tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Beg to second that, sir.
The question is that this House be suspended until tomorrow, the 16th of March, 2022, at 10 a.m. sharp. Those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. This House now stands suspended until tomorrow morning, the 16th of March, at 10 a.m. sharp.